Previously in class I have covered the past module which comprises the basic elements of control, the understanding of the state model, the input-output model, and finally the input-output model in Laplace domain for different types of systems like single input, single output, multiple input, single output, and simultaneously this multiple input, multiple output. And there we have understood also the concept of transfer function matrix. And in this time, I expect that you have got the basic idea of first order, second order, and feedback control systems. So here, I'm starting the fourth module of the syllabus, and the topic, the fundamental topic in the fourth module is the frequency response analysis. Right? So, frequency response, in frequency response analysis, we consider the input, a new type of input, that is the sinusoidal input. Okay? So, where f prime t, that is the deviation variable of the input, is a sine omega t, where a is the amplitude and omega is the frequency. So, point is that why we are choosing this. See, in many systems, particularly related to these chemical process plants, different devices, there are many systems where we have lot of non-idealities. And you have seen that when we have formulated the model, we consider lot of assumptions by which we discard the non-idealities of that system, and from there we have came up with the different types of state model, which were again non-linear. So non-linear, as it is non-linear, we cannot go for Laplace transforms, so we have to linearize it. But the point is, everywhere it is not possible because of the inherent complexity of that system, everywhere it is not possible to straight develop the mathematical model of that system. So in that case, we have to derive the transfer function expression through experiments. And what is the experiment? The experiment will be something like that. We have got an tentative idea that this system is a second order overdamped system, right? So if it is a second order overdamped system, we have got an idea that it is a second order overdamped system, and we want to calculate the gain, then the natural period of oscillation, the damping factor, etc. So what we do, we give a step input to the system, we actually collect the output data, and from this output of the device in conducting actual experiment, maybe in the pilot plant, it is not permitted for the large scale device. So once we have received the output, so we go for its deviation variable form, and as it is a time domain curve, we can actually get the Laplace transform of it. And similarly, as we know the input, we can also get the Laplace transform, right? So Laplace transform output divided by Laplace transform input will be the transfer function of that system, and we repeat that for different types of the step input, maybe of varying amplitude, varying this step height. Now the point is, if this why the frequency response is specifically important. Frequency response actually is able to distinguish between some salient features of the transfer function which a conventional step input cannot. Like, I will discuss it, we will justify that later, that if a second order overdamped system has got two these poles which are very close to each other, right? Like a second order system we can think as pi divided by say s minus 1 into s minus 0.99, right? So we want, and actually it is two first order systems in series, and we want to determine the poles with clarity that we should have a resolution of 1 and this 0.99 such that we can differentiate these two. So it's quite difficult if we start with this step input, but they can be clearly demarcated if we use this frequency response analysis. I'm just making a statement here, we will try to justify that later. So in order to understand the importance of frequency response analysis in control engineering, we have to go for the special techniques we apply in frequency response. It's not typically like that you have used a sinusoid, so take a transfer function, or transform the expression of A sin omega t in the Laplace domain and multiply it by the transfer function, then resolve it into partial fractions and all, and finally from there you get the output. It's not like that because the process will be algebraically tedious. So let's see the example. If I think it's a fast order system, right? It's a typical fast order system, f I prime t giving you y prime t, and here the transfer function is kp divided by tau ps plus 1. So to see y prime, here we should write y prime s, here also f prime s. So y prime bar divided by f prime bar is the transfer function of that system, and that's equal to kp divided by tau ps plus 1, right? Now here we have fixed this f prime t as a sin omega t, right? So this is sinusoidal input. Okay, so f prime bar s is equal to a omega divided by s square plus omega square. So naturally y prime bar s will be kp a omega divided by tau ps plus 1 into s square plus omega square. Right. Now this is a quadratic fraction and we have to break it down into two linear factors. So kp a omega divided by, say here tau p if I write, so here the term will be 1 s plus 1 by tau p into s plus j omega into s minus j omega, right? So applying the partial fraction methodology, you see that we can write it as s c1 divided by s plus 1 by tau p plus c2 divided by s plus j omega plus c3 divided by s minus j omega. So without going into this tedious algebraic solutions for the c1, c2 and c3, if I simply go for a qualitative understanding of this entire response, so you see that this will be c1 into e to the power minus t by tau p plus c2 into e to the power minus j omega t plus c3 into e to the power j omega t. So we can have this c1 into e to the power minus t by tau p plus some this we can combine because we can write it as c2 within bracket cos of omega t minus j sin of omega t plus c3 within bracket cos of omega t plus j sin of omega t, right? So c1 into e to the power minus t by tau p plus this c2 plus c3 into cos of omega t plus c3 minus c2 into j into sin of omega t, right? So now this c2 plus c3 we can write as this r sin phi, and this entire group we can say that it is r cos phi. So immediately it becomes c1 into e to the power minus t by tau p plus r into sine of omega t plus phi, right? So still we have to find out the values of the c1 and r, and we will do that later. But what we have understood that, see, this is the transient response, okay? This is the transient response, however, it contains an exponential decay term. And for a stable system, as we have studied also in module 3, that this tau p, definitely here tau p is positive, right? Tau p is positive. So because the first order is a stable system, and this term, the c1 into e to the power minus tau t by tau p decays with time. Right? So we can write something called sustained output of that system. Sustained output of the system. Here temporarily we write it as YSS prime T will be definitely equal to R into sine of omega t plus phi. Right? And actually if you solve these values of C1, C2 and C3, you will get that this is equal to Kp into A, R will be equal to Kp into A under root of tau p square omega square plus 1 into sine of omega t plus tan inverse of minus omega tau. That means the phi value is tan inverse of minus omega tau p and the R will be turning out to be Kp into A under root of tau p square omega square plus 1. So what is the inference we can draw here? The inference is the first, the sustained output to a sinusoidal input given to a first order system is also a sinusoid. Number 2, so the sustained output, because this is a sinusoidal output, the sustained output to a sinusoidal input given to a first order system is also a sinusoid. However, the output sinusoid has different amplitude and phase relative to this input sinusoid or input wave. Right. So you see this amplitude of input is A, amplitude of output is Kpa under root of tau p square omega square plus 1. Right? And phase of the input wave, definitely it is omega t. Phase of the output wave, it's omega t plus tan inverse of minus omega tau. Right. So there is a change of this amplitude as well as a phase. So how we quantify that? First, rather we write here quantifications or quantifications of change or changes in amplitude and phase. The first one is defined as amplitude ratio, AI. That is output amplitude divided by input amplitude, and that's equal to Kp by tau p square omega square plus 1. And second is phase shift phi, phase of the output wave minus phase of the input wave, and that is tan inverse minus omega tau. So you see that this is negative, right? This phase shift is negative. So basically the thing is, if the phase shift is negative, the respective system is called a lag, and if it is positive, then it is called a lead, right? So if phi is positive, it is a phase lag, or sorry, phase this lead, and if phi is negative, it is phase lag. So actually this idea of lead and lag of a wave we can understand from considering the idea of rotating vector which actually generates the wave. So you see, what you can think of, let's think a rotating vector which is initially here on theta equal to 0 line, right? And it rotates in a counterclockwise direction like this. Okay, so it's rotating in the counterclockwise direction like this, and we are trying to plot the y coordinate of the tip, y coordinate of the tip with respect to time, and theta we can understand that for this wave, for say it is called wave 1, right? For wave 1, theta equal to omega t, right? So theta is proportional to time. So you see that at t equal to 0 it's here, t equal to t1 it will be here, at t2 it will be here, and at t3 here, t4 here, t5, t6, t7, and this will be also equal to t8. So if I respectively plot this, right, at 0 it is the position, so at t1 this is the position, and at t2 this is the position, and at t3 this will be, let's say, the position, and at t4 this is the position. Now at t5 it will be here, at t6 it will be here, and at t7 it will be here, and at t8 it's again 0. So if I join the instantaneous locations, I will get a curve like this. Right? So it's typically a sinusoid. Now what is, so this is a reference wave which has got t equal to 0. At t equal to 0, it's theta equal to 0 because theta equal to omega t. Now let's think of a wave, say 2, which starts from this position. So this is wave 2, right? This is wave 1. So it will start from this. So for wave 1, and let's say this angle is minus of phi, right? So for wave 2, theta equal to omega t minus phi, because at time t equal to 0, theta equal to phi. So it will start from this position. So just like grow like this, and this, right? So this is a kind of, this is wave 1, this is wave 2. So it's a lag wave. Okay? And alternatively, if we think of another vector or another rotating vector, which is 3, and here this is phi prime, right? And this is the situation at t equal to 0. So for wave 3, theta equal to omega t plus phi prime. So it will start from somewhere here, attaining maxima here, and will be moving like this. So this is wave 3, and automatically it is a lead wave, right? So that's the idea, basic idea of lead and lag parting into wave. Probably you know all this, just I have revisited it and made it clear for this frequency response analysis. So that's necessary to understand. The physical realization is necessary basically to understand that what is the meaning of positive as well as the negative phase shift. Now you see that the process of finding, though we have bypassed it, as we know this C1, C2, C3 values, and finally we were interested only in the sustained output. So what we did here, we simply have not calculated the values of C1, C2 and C3, right? Because that respective algebra is quite tedious. Now, definitely it should not be the process for us more complex second order or higher order systems, or more complicated systems like first order or second order system combined, then it is having a feedback loop. So overall, what will be the response, right? Maybe accompanied by a dead time, etc., etc. So for that, to find out the output, provided the input is a sinusoid, is too much complicated. So we will try to go for finding some alternative route. And here, this is simply by mathematical introspection, we can see what? See, what we did? Here we did for a first order system, where GS is equal to this Kp divided by tau Ps plus 1, for which we have found that amplitude ratio, that is Kp divided by under root of tau p square omega square plus 1, and phi is equal to tan inverse of minus omega tau. Right, that we have found. Now you see, if I replace S by j omega, right, j is basically under root of minus 1. So S by j omega, so we'll get that g of j omega is this totally arbitrary. We are doing it in order to search for an alternative route. So we get here 1 plus j tau p omega. So if I rationalize this complex number, then we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by 1 minus j tau p omega. So 1 minus j tau p omega divided by 1 plus j tau p omega, and here 1 minus j into tau p omega. So you see the denominator changes to tau p square omega square plus 1, and the numerator, there are two parts, one is the real part, another is the imaginary part, correct? Now if I go for finding the modulus of the complex number, what we get? It is Kp square plus Kp square tau p omega with a minus sign whole square sum. Denominator will be this square of this tau p square omega square plus 1 whole square, and overall it is an under root, right? So what we obtain? We will simply obtain that it is going to give you Kp divided by under root of tau p square omega square plus 1. Okay. And surprisingly, it is equal to the amplitude ratio of first order system, right? And again, if I find out the argument of this complex number, it will be tan inverse of imaginary divided by the real. So you get it is simply tau p omega, because the denominator is common to both imaginary and real part and it cancels out. So this is equal to the phase shift. So what is the inference? That if for a first order system, definitely it is restricted for a first order system. If for a first order system, we substitute in the transfer function that s by j omega, we will get a complex number, and in that complex number, if I further find out the argument of that complex number, we will get the respective amplitude ratio, and if I find out the phase of this modulus of this complex number, we get the amplitude ratio, and argument of this complex number is equal to the phase shift. So obviously the next question, whatever evolves, is whether it is true for all the different types of the system. But it's not possible to go on checking for different types of system using this technique that, okay, let's go for replacing this s by j omega in the transfer function, and let's do this exercise again and again for multiple different types of the system. It's not possible. So a general proof is necessary. Okay. So general proof is necessary that whether if we what if we substitute the transfer function s by j omega and we go for finding the amplitude ratio of the respective complex number. So we're trying to go for that this proof, or rather proof of mod g j omega equal to amplitude ratio and argument g j omega equal to phi. Right? So you see that y prime bar s is gs, the transfer function, into a omega divided by s square plus omega square. So it's like that we are trying to find out. So here this gs, let's say it is some k divided by s minus p1, s minus p2, s minus pn into a of this s plus j omega and s minus j omega. Right? Where pi are the poles of the transfer function. And considering Routh-Hurwitz stability criterion, and actually this Routh-Hurwitz stability criterion is probably in the module 3, which has been covered right, by Professor Ekede. So for Routh-Hurwitz criteria, what do we know? That all the poles must have a negative real part. So the poles are this P1, P2, P3, and we consider these are real poles. And these poles are of negative real part. Considering our stability criteria, we assume that all Pi are negative, right? Or rather, this real part of Pi are all negative. Real part of the Pi is all negative. So you see y prime t, if I calculate, I will get this, or rather this, first we have to break it down into partial fractions, say s minus p1 plus c2, s minus p2, etc., plus cn, s minus pn, plus a divided by s plus j omega plus b divided by s minus j omega. Right? So the thing is, y prime t tentatively will be this kind of expression plus A is e to the power minus j omega t plus B e to the power plus j omega t. So you see, in the sustained output, if I write, only the surviving term will be this e to the power minus j omega t plus B e to the power j omega t, as all pi's are, or all real part of the pi are negative, right, for a stable system. So the point is, we have to find out, to establish this, we have to find out A and B, the coefficients A and B in terms of G min. So you see that if I want to calculate this y prime s, what we can write? We can write that this is Gs into A omega divided by A square plus omega square, and that's equal to C1 S minus P1, C2 S minus P2, etc. plus A divided by S plus j omega plus B divided by S minus j omega. And we have to find out specifically A and B. So what we do, we'll multiply this entire, multiply the equation by what? S minus P1 up to S minus Pn into S plus j omega into S minus j omega. So let's see what we are getting. So here it's Gs into S minus P1 up to S minus Pn. Now S plus j omega and S minus j omega will cancels out with S square plus omega square. So here the first term C1 S minus P2 S minus Pn into S plus j omega into S minus j omega. And I'm not writing the other terms because our interest will be only focused here to find the values of A and B, not C1, C2, C3, right? So the last term here for Cn, see this Cn will be S minus P1, S minus P2, S minus Pn minus 1 into S plus j omega into S minus j omega, right? Plus this terms for A into S minus P1 to S minus Pn into S minus j omega, right? And for B, it will be S minus P1 to S minus Pn into S plus j omega. Correct? Now we have to find out the values of A and B only. See, because we are interested this and this only, because we have already established that the sustained output only consists of these two coefficients, right? So what we have to do, if I substitute S is equal to j omega, so G j omega, see, now here it will be j omega minus P1 up to j omega minus Pn, right? So now you see all these C1, C2, Cn will cancel out because there is a term S is equal to or S minus j omega. So whenever we substitute S is equal to j omega, this will be converting to 0, right? All this C1 to Cn. And here the term containing A is also be 0. However, the term containing B will survive. So B into j omega minus P1 into j omega minus Pn into 2j omega. So this part and this part cancels out, and we get B is equal to g j omega divided by 2j omega, correct? And similarly, if I substitute S is equal to minus of j omega, so the left hand side we will get g of minus j omega, and that this similar terms, and here it will be minus of 2j omega into A. So A will be equal to g of minus j omega divided by minus 2j. Now let's substitute it back here in this sustained output expression. Right. So you see that if I substitute now, my sustained output will be A. So A is this g of minus j omega divided by minus 2j into e to the power minus j omega t plus g of j omega divided by 2j into e to the power j omega. Now you see this g j omega and g minus j omega, these are complex numbers, right? And precisely they are complex conjugate. Why? Because if I write that, say, g of j omega, g of s, right, it's equal to kp divided by tau ps plus 1. Just see that. So g of j omega is equal to kp divided by 1 plus, just we have solved it, j tau p omega. So here we can write it as kp into this 1 minus j tau p omega divided by tau p square omega square plus 1. So g of minus j omega will be obviously this kp into 1 plus j tau p omega divided by tau p square omega square plus 1. So this is basically the complex conjugate of g j omega, and for all other different transfer function expression it can be very easily established that g j omega and g minus j omega are complex conjugate numbers of, or this complex conjugate pair, right? So we can write, you see, that complex conjugate means in Argand diagram, what is the implication? This imaginary part, they are changing its signs, but the real part is same. Let's say the real part, say a complex number z is equal to a plus jb, and the complex conjugate z star is a minus jb. So what are the relative locations? Okay. So g here, this is a and this is b, right? And here this is a and this is minus b. Okay. So these are the two complex numbers. This is z and this is z star. Now you note their modulus remains unchanged because it will be under root of a square plus b square in both of the cases. However, because of this plus and minus sign, if the phase here is theta, this phase is theta, here it will be minus theta. The argument, so basically we can write that mod z is equal to mod z star, and argument of z is equal to minus of argument of z star. Right. So what we can do here, that g j omega, we will write mod of g j omega into e to the power j, we are going for the polar form, argument of g omega, right? Whereas g of minus j omega will be mod of g j omega, the same modulus, and argument will also be the same but with a change sign. So we can write e to the power minus j argument of g j omega, right? So these two, now let's substitute in the main expression. So yss prime t becomes, first if I consider this term, mod of g j omega by 2j into e to the power j, if we take common, omega t plus argument of g j omega, right? And next this will be minus mod of g j omega, the first term here, the minus is incorporated, the 2j and here we have, see, here we have a minus sign, here also it is minus sign. So you can write e to the power minus of j, e to the power minus of j omega t plus argument of g j omega. Okay? So if I now take this mod of g j omega common inside the bracket, it is e to the power j omega t plus argument of g j omega minus e to the power minus j omega t plus argument of g j omega, right? That divided by 2j. Now you see e to the power j theta minus e to the power minus j theta divided by 2j is sine theta. So we get actually that mod of g j omega into sine of omega t plus argument of g j. Right. So this is the sustained output expression. This is the sustained output expression, and automatically we have established here that amplitude ratio. Sorry, I missed probably one thing. What is that? What I have missed? Okay, this A omega, this part has been skipped out. So whenever you are multiplying it, there will be some additional A omega. Because there will be some A here. So right. So okay, this A, see, there was a bit of mistake in calculation, but actually it arranges to the same. So see, if there was A omega here, so we will get capital A is equal to g of minus j omega divided by 2j, whatever we have written, because this g j omega, here A omega will be there, so there will be an A additionally, right? So this amplitude, and we can change this if it seems to be matching with in terms of symbol, we can write this A prime and B prime. Okay, let me just revisit that just for a minute. Let's see that here it is A prime and B prime, A prime here and B prime here, right? So it is A omega divided by A square omega square, so A omega GS, this all this and everything we have got. So A omega, you see, G of J omega is finally, after cancelling out, here it is S plus J omega, we will be getting that B prime, here A prime and B prime, right? So B prime into this S minus P1 and S minus Pn will cancel out from two sides into 2J omega. So Gj omega is actually A into Gj omega divided by 2J. And similarly, G of B prime is equal to A into G of J omega divided by 2J, and A prime similarly will be A of G of minus J omega divided by minus 2. So what will happen here? We will have A, right? So everything else is correct. So here we will have A, here we will have A, and this will be A. So this is the part of the amplitude and this is the part of the phase shift, right? So amplitude is equal to the input amplitude into G of j omega. So amplitude ratio, we can immediately conclude that amplitude ratio will be mod of G j omega, and phi is equal to tan inverse of minus omega tau. Phi is equal to argument of G j omega. Right? So that's the formal proof. So if this is done, we have got an easy way out of solving the amplitude ratio and phase shift of different types of system considering its sustained output. Right? So you see that if it is typically a first order system, we have got this amplitude ratio is equal to Kp divided by tau p square omega square plus 1. Phi is equal to tan inverse of minus omega tau. Now if it is a pure capacitive system, where G is equal to sub k by S, so you see G j omega will be equal to k divided by j into omega, so minus of j k by omega. Right, because this plus 1 we have replaced as minus of j square. So it is minus of j k by omega. So here this amplitude ratio will be k divided by omega, and phase shift, the imaginary part divided by real part, the tan inverse of that. So real is 0, right? Imaginary there is a minus sign. So it is tan inverse of minus infinity, right? So it is minus 90. Okay, the pure capacitive system has got a fixed phase shift, but amplitude ratio is k divided by omega. Like we can also consider second order system with G equal to Kp divided by tau p square s square plus 2 tau p zeta s, not tau p, tau s square plus 2 tau zeta s plus 1. So G of j omega is equal to Kp that divided by 1 minus tau square omega square, because this 1 minus tau square omega square, and plus j into 2 tau zeta omega. Right. 1 minus tau square omega square plus j into 2 tau zeta omega. So mod of G j omega, which is amplitude ratio, will be simply Kp divided by under root of 1 minus tau square omega square whole square plus 2 tau zeta omega whole square, and phi will be equal to tan inverse of minus 2 tau zeta omega divided by 1 minus tau square. Okay? So in the next session we will continue our discussion with finding some more amplitude ratio and the phase shift expression, and finally we will try to actually discuss about the graphical representation of amplitude ratio and phi with respect to omega. And there are standard two modes of representation. One is called the Bode plot in log and semi-log space, and another one is Nyquist plot, or Nyquist plot, which will be in the rectangular Argand diagram space. Thank you.